cage matches, Hell in a Cell, and Elimination Chamber. Today, I'm giving you tips on everything that you can do in all 3 matches. Let's go. The 3 structures in WWE, the cage match and the Hell in a Cell and the Elimination Chamber, and there is actually quite a bit you can do in each of these matches, and that's what I'm going to give you today. This is Assemble, I'm Matt, let's kick it off with the cage matches. I'm starting things off with a great cage match between Mustafa Ali and Ricochet. Also, shout out to the original blue cage, because just beautiful. So grapple your opponent, hit the right trigger, and flick up on stick so we can get him into like a powerbomb position. Or to any side of the cage, because then you can hit where it says prompts you to hit B, in this case on Xbox, to hit over. You'll be able to powerbomb your opponent right into the cage and to the ground. The cool one is when you hit on the side of the joystick and you'll be able to lawn dart your opponent through the cage too. Another one is being able to just slam them right into the cage. There are other motions too where you can slam your opponent through the cage and they're gonna roll behind the ropes. Now, climbing the cage, when you're getting up on the cage, not to the very top, but just on the sidewall of the cage, you can perform some diving attacks. Unfortunately, you're a little limited, and this is one of the things I don't like. But with your opponent lying on the ground, you can perform an elbow drop. And in this case, we can do an elbow drop and turn it right into a pin combination. And if you have a standing opponent, you will be able to do a double axe handle move. Keep in mind too that if you are the one that is standing and you're playing your buddies online, you can reverse all of these cage moves too, which is a lot of fun. Now you want to create some epic moments, climb to the very top of the cage. Climbing all the way up to the top of the cage, and then you are going to hit your attack move, and you will be able to have a full crossbody on your standing opponent. You can obviously reverse this too, which is really painful if you're the one jumping down. And if you can keep your opponent down long enough, you can do a full splash from the top of the cage. Just try to get that opponent really worn down to be able to pull that off. If your opponent is climbing the side of the cage, you can either strike them or hit the grapple button to be able to get them off the cage. Do this a couple of times and you're bound to throw them off. Climbing up again, getting halfway, side by side on the cage is a lot of fun. You can go back and forth, slamming each other's head into the cage, and then they're gonna proceed to fall right down. One of my favorite spots that I did in a cage match was getting both of them on the top of the cage and then striking back and forth. If you're trying to recreate some really cool drama, get some good footage, cutscenes, anything like that, this is really fun to pull off. You can go back and forth quite a bit. If you win the striking showdown on the top of the cage, you will toss your opponent right off of the cage down to the mat. You can either exit the cage at this point, or you can just smash them in the ring. And have some fun in the cage. Don't forget to change up the rules in there, change the different type of cage you're going to have, pin combinations, exit only, but do it your way. Next, let's talk about Hell in the Cell. Cell can be broken up quite a bit here. There are multiple locations around the ring that you can slam your opponent through the cell. If you want to slam them through the cell wall, make sure that you are just doing strikes and you are striking them towards the wall of the cell. Once you do this and you have a finisher stored up, you will be able to perform special move and slam them through the cell. Other than the steel ring steps area, you cannot remove the steel steps in the Hell in the Cell to get them out of the way. So you can't slam in those areas of the cell structure. But the other 2, you will have the opposing sides that you can smash through. And then you can hit your right trigger and then you can exit the cell itself, and then you're on the outside and you can climb right up to the top of the cell. Now, if you are climbing halfway up the cell, you can have a lot of fun here. You can do striking back and forth on the side of the cell and try to knock your opponent right down to the ground. If you are trying to pull this off on the other side by the announce table, unfortunately, you cannot smash your opponent and have them fall through the table when you're halfway on the cell. It doesn't work, unfortunately. I think this is a big miss by 2K, because to me, that's an easy animation to be able to pull off. Now, obviously, one of the bigger moments, bigger things you can do on top of the Hell in the Cell is tossing them off of the cell. Now, one thing you can do is just try to whip them off of the cell itself, and they'll go falling crumbling to the ground. The other thing you can do is get into a lockup, hit the right trigger with the left stick at the same time, and then when you got your opponent over your shoulder, you can simply just hit strike button, and then boom, they're gonna be tossed off of the cell through the announce table. Classic ones we all know about is going to be with the top of the Hell in the Cell. It takes 2 big strikes on the cage top so that you can put them through the cell and you're good to go. Remember, if it's already open, then just be careful if you're back up there, you might step through it and fall to the ground too. Fun thing you can do though, get yourself some tables, set up the Hell in the Cell rules so that you have a lot of tables available. You can't do ladders in here, but if you set up enough tables, set them up so they're just in the middle of the ring area as best you can. You will most likely hit them through a table, which is a really cool spot. Now, have you ever been in Hell in a Cell and the referee is just bothering you and you want to get rid of them? Well, you can. In the options menu, make sure that you have turned the targeting to manual and that you can manually select the referee. This will allow you to just demolish the ref at any time when they're bothering you and they're glitching out or they're just getting in your way. In this case here, I got Brock Lesnar and he's able to hoist the referee up and do a full press slam and chuck the referee out of the ring. It's a fun spot to do. You can obviously do this to your opponent too, but what's cool is that if you have a big heavyweight like Brock, when he throws the referee out, he's not dropping to the floor, he's throwing him into the cell wall, which is really cool. It creates a better atmosphere and you're really just demolishing everything inside Hell in a Cell. Next up is the Elimination Chamber. Lift your opponent up, and as you get close to one of the pods, hit X or hit square on PlayStation, and you will smack your opponent into the pod wall, and then he'll be power bomb to the ground. You can do the same thing, throwing your opponent inside the ring, back in or back out to the ground. If you climb the top rope and then you proceed to climb the top of the pod, you can pull off a really cool moment by doing a full splash onto your opponent. You can also scale the Elimination Chamber and slide over so you get on top of the pod, and then you can do a full cross body onto them to the ground. One of the big moments you can do inside Elimination Chamber 2 is crushing them through the pod glass. To do this, carry your opponent so that they are lined up and they are stunned against the pod. Make sure that you have a finisher stored, and that little blue bar you have at the bottom, make sure it is completely full. Press and hold for a strong grapple. This will initiate your opponent going through the pod. It's cool too because they have the animation where they pull and drag them out of the pod after they've crushed them through it. And one of my favorites to do inside Elimination Chamber, if your opponent is on top of the pod, and if you can get up fast enough, you can climb up the turnbuckle, grapple your opponent, and you will throw them off the top of the pod to the ground. And since you're still on the top rope, go and hit them with a big splash and a big move from the top. It's a lot of fun. Creating huge moments in WWE 2K22 is a lot of fun. So click this video for 5 easy custom matches you can do right now in 2K22. I'll see you over there.